This one too much, so we'll go around her.
Well, everybody straight down here.
Right over here.
Just this camera, please, guys.
You know, one person can take this picture and they can email it to each other. You know, it's 2014, you can just text that shit to each other.
Good job.
Come here, sweetie. Such a pro. Monkey balance.
I want to thank Toronto for raising me to love movies. Hello, hello!
Everyone has a big imagination. All of us do.
This is exciting. My first film to premiere here at the Toronto Film Festival. It's an exciting night.
You are the most globally exciting festival in the world.
Hello and welcome to the press conference for Black and White. A few points before we begin. This press conference will be streamed live at www.tiff.net, and still photographs will be made available on the TIFF media site. There are volunteers in the room with microphones to assist you with your questions. Please remember to identify yourself and your media outlet. Please note, no photography is permitted during this press conference. Only the pre-approved wire services may take photographs, and we ask that you do so from behind the first row. If you could take a moment to turn your cell phones to silent. Our moderator for today is Eric Kohanek, and it is now my pleasure to welcome the director and cast for Black and White.
Good morning. Welcome to the press conference for Black and White. My name is Eric Kohanek. I'm your moderator this morning, and with us today, seated next to me, we have Mike Binder, who is the director of the film and also wrote the screenplay. Next to him, we have Kevin Costner, the star of the film, who plays the role of lawyer Elliot Anderson. Next to Kevin, we have Octavia Spencer, who takes on the role of Rowena, Eloise's paternal grandmother. Or Grandma Wee Wee, I guess. Next to Octavia, we have Anthony Mackie, who takes on the role of Rowena's brother, the sharp lawyer Jeremiah. Next to Anthony, we have Jillian Estelle, who takes on the role of Eloise in the film. And last but certainly not least, we have Umpo Kawaho, who takes on the role of Duvan, the brainy tutor in the movie. If you have any questions, we have volunteers with microphones. Stick up your hand and we'll get a mic to you. I'll start it off, Mike, by asking you where you got the idea for the story and writing the script and how you got the project rolling.
Well, the idea came from a real chapter, I guess you could say, in my life and in my wife's life. Sadly, my wife's sister died young at 32 and had a biracial son who we loved very much, whose father wasn't in her life. And I helped Diane raise her. Raise him. Diane did all the work. But, you know, he was a real big part of our life. And he had another big family down in South Central. And especially a grandmother who was really big in his life. And we lived in Santa Monica at the time, and it was two different worlds, you know, it was two different planets. And the only one that didn't make a big deal about being black or white was him. He was just a little boy, you know, and he just loved the people and the family in his life. And he really saw everybody as who they were, not what they were. And he really grew up a really loving kid, you know. And I always thought, I always had an idea to tell that story in some way as a a look into my particular take on this whole race conundrum that we all live with every day of our lives. And I just always had the idea, and I wrote the script, and I had made Upside of Anger with Kevin, and I just love working with him, you know, and so I just wanted to get back in the boat, and I sent him maybe 4 scripts and got the fastest no's I'd ever gotten in my life. Which is, in a way, is better than getting these long, extended silences, you know? And so, but this script, I didn't send right to him. I sent to JJ as manager, and I said, JJ, read this and tell me if you think this is something Kevin would do, because I want to lean into this, and I don't know what Kevin's take is, and just you read it, and don't give it to Kevin. Don't give it to Kevin, just read it. And she called me 2 days later and said, he read it, he wants to talk to you, he wants to do it. And, you know, and that's the thing with this guy. He's a very decisive guy, you know, and he said that night on the phone, yeah, I want to do it, and he just never veered, you know, and he wasn't afraid of any aspect of it. In fact, he wanted to be bolder than I did. He just wanted to go out on the ice, and I really respected that. And, you know, and then we went and got Octavia, who just wanted to work with Kevin Costner. I don't even think she read the script. She just goes, I love that guy. I went, well, it's about 2 penguins. Is that going to bother you? Penguins? My agent didn't tell me that. But, and you know, I just fell in love with her and from the first lunch, you know, and it rolled out from there. You know?
Well, then, just to follow Kevin and maybe Octavia, can you talk about what grabbed you about the script at first? And
well, I've had scripts do that to me in my career. I'm happy to say I've worked on about 10 or 11 movies where we really didn't change a word, and this one qualifies. And 10 or 11 where you don't change a word is probably about 10 more than most people get. The way Hollywood works, that the drafts are being changed constantly. So Michael did the work, and it was easy to recognize. And I've heard it before. The bell goes off, and you go, you know, wow, I want to do this. So that's what happened. It was is somebody who's really good at what they do creates something great. And I do think it's a great American screenplay, you know, and I'd be lucky to find another one. It was really, really great. And I was very convinced, knowing actors the way I do, that the actors, if they had the moment, the time in their life to come do this movie, they would compete for these parts, and we really got the best people.
Octavia, you want to chime in on that, other than wanting to work with Kevin?
Well, definitely, I wanted to work with Kevin. But I'm a huge fan of Mike Binder as well. When I saw Upside of Anger, I thought, I got to meet this guy, because he really knows how to deal with pain, and he knows how to make everything feel like it's a slice of life, a slice of reality, because, you know, life isn't one bold drama and it's not one comedy, it's the intertwining of both. And what a complex situation race is in the world, and I loved how Mike dealt with it, because I think people on its face value think that black and white is about being black or white. I think it's all about that gray stuff in the middle. It's about love, about family, about blended family, about pain, about all of those things, grief. And grief can be black or it can be white, you know. Love can be literal, or I'm not that in love with you. So it's all of that, you know. But when my agent said, you know, I'm sending you this project, when I signed on with my agent, I told him, I said, I know you represent Kevin Costner. You need to find something for us to do together. And he finally called me one day and said, I found the project. It's a grandmother. I said, a young grandmother, right? Young. We're a young grandmother, I'll do it. I'll do it. Because I really wanted, it was an honor, and it was the best experience of my career. There were days that I would just go to work to watch, and it was, we have this saying, I have FOMO, can I come today? I'm missing you guys. And it was an honor to work with both of them.
All right, we have a question. Microphone down here. Thank you.
Well, hello. My name is Swati Sharan, and I'm from Minority Review. I guess, Kevin, I've been a long-time admirer of yours. I've loved you in so many roles, including JFK, Dances with Wolves, and so on, you know. And Octavia, you're also a fabulous actress. I'm really blessed to be in front of you today. It's really sweet. And I guess my question here is, with the following statements first. To display the challenges being faced by African Americans when they would be accused of wrongful action, Martin Luther King quoted Victor Hugo from Les Miserables with the quote, "When a crime is committed, the guilty one is not he who committed the crime, but he who caused the darkness." And then later on, he said how he dreamed of the day when people were judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin. So given that there has been so much history and presence of tradition, presence of discrimination, it's so hard for some people to break out of that, and I can see, like some of the characters, are byproducts of that, and I'm just wondering, like, what do you guys think of this Victor Hugo quote? And if you agree with it, how can individuals break out of this cycle?
Well, I think Mike does a beautiful job exemplifying that very quote, because if he had done, the typical, the white man saves the day, the black man is the guilty party, you would not have walked out of that. Actually, while you were in the film, you wouldn't have had those triumphant moments where you want to applause. You want to clap for the Elliot character who is battling his own demons. I felt Mike did a wonderful job in telling the story even-handedly. And at the end of the day, the darkness did not win out. The family came together. The little girl, even though, because his character could have certainly put my son in jail, there was a lot of beauty and a lot of wisdom in how he chose to tell that story, and a lot of redemption. And I love that it wasn't the cookie cutter factory type, story. I felt like he really did a beautiful job in showing real human behavior, and he didn't shy away from the fact that it's uncomfortable, in my opinion.
I thought Anthony Mackie, people talking a little bit about the speech I have in the courtroom and feeling the level of being affected by that, and I certainly was when I read it. But I think if the character that Anthony played, if you watch really closely, there's two things going on. There's the lawyer who wants to win, because that's what you do when you have a client. But Anthony's character, you were so good in that conference room when he broke it down. It wasn't black or white. It was just about being a man and the failings of Reggie, and the fact that Anthony took that speech on, and I thought he really framed the movie. This idea about how you need to behave as a man, and you've fallen down as a father, and I thought it was powerful. And I thought I don't want that to be overlooked, how strong that speech is, because that leveled the playing field, and it really leveled it, and you leveled Reggie. It was really beautiful. I watched it last night with a lot of attention, and it was really important. And Mike, that was the high wire act Mike has done with this subject.
Well, I also just want to, I agree with that, because I actually think that Anthony brings a gravitas to that character, but he also brings just kind of a low-level humanity, because to me that is at the bone marrow of this. This is about, what is that connection we have as parents? This isn't about black and white. This is about, what do you feel when the minute your child is born? Are you instantly connected for the rest of your life, that child is your responsibility? And being a parent, I have 2 children, and when my daughter was born, my life was forever changed. and the headline on my life is that I'm their father. And a lot of people don't get that. A lot of guys don't get that, white or black. You know, they just don't get that. And that line, the way when he says that, is really, to me, the bone marrow of this movie. There's a piece of you, a chromosome missing. And that is what he's fighting for. That's what she's fighting for, because Reggie has a weakness. So, you know, and so I really agree with that. And I really feel like when we got on the set and made this movie, you know, yeah, we knew we were making a movie about race, but that wasn't what we were talking about. That wasn't everything. We were talking about a movie about family. So,
Anthony, maybe you want to weigh in on that too, and talk a bit about the fuel, the emotional fuel you used to fire up your character.
No, it's exactly how I feel in my real life. When I read the script, I got to that scene, and literally, it blew my mind because it's exactly how I feel. I'm very fortunate to have sons. I'm very fortunate to be someone's son. I'm very fortunate to have amazing nieces and nephews. And you know, I'm a firm believer that racism is ignorance. It's something that's taught. A child is not born racist. And I feel like as a generation, we need to get out of the way of this, you know, coming generation and allow them to be the best that they can be and not allow our shit to convolute their view of the world. And, you know, when I read the script, I was really moved, for me, that this movie was not about race. You know, she hated him because he was a drunk. You know, no matter what you look like, if you're a drunk, it's a problem. You know, and she was just a crotchety, or, you know, grandma. Like, it's just real people. They just happen to be
young, crotchety young grandma.
They just happen to be black and white. And I think that's, when we get down to the basis of it, that's what it is. It's about the person. It's not so much their race. It's their beliefs and what they're willing to fight for and what they're willing to live for. And I think with my character, there's a lot of things I put on the table with him and brought into the room to try to make him real and make that scene of importance. You know, that when you become successful, there's a lot of things you have to sacrifice. And you see your friends get married and have kids and start a family, and you're like, wow, that's great. And I'm at a party with all these dumb chicks that are just selfish and want you to buy them shoes. You know what I mean? Like, you just sacrifice a lot to be successful. And you know, it's just an innate nature that you want that person to start a family and start the rest of your life with. But a lot of times you just don't meet that person because you're more focused on your career. So, welcome to my life.
A little window into Anthony Mackie.
You just got one more point in your
That's
Hello.
it.
Oh. Good morning, Barbara Dudinska, Slovak News Agency. I have a question for Kevin and Octavia, although I do like shoes. You know,
welcome to my life.
I have a different question. Do you think we as a society will be ever ready to look at a non-traditional family as a traditional one? And what can we do to make it happen? Thank you.
See, I don't know what a non-traditional family is. I think when we stop labeling things, you know, as non-traditional, I think that's part of the problem. I think when we start labeling, this is a non-traditional family, that's, the solution is just to not do that, to allow yourself to be open-minded, to get out of the way of that type of progression. I think that's kind of where we start with the individual and how you think.
I don't know. It seems like it's really, you look at the world, it's so hard to get out of our way. But that's the job. And I think Anthony's right. I think that we do have to get out of the way of our children. Mike always says they're going to be better than us. I know how I grew up. I grew up in Compton. Not my entire life, but my first 7 years were there, and I saw how people talked on both sides, and you know, I felt like I grew up a little bit ignorant. But I'm glad I grew up, and you know, what's traditional anymore. I mean, life takes bites out of all of us, but we have to keep going. You get divorced, you keep going. You have you have a brother suddenly that didn't come, you know, from your mother, and you keep going. And we just, you know, as people, we just have to raise our game, and we have to have empathy, and all the things that go with trying to just be a human being walking down the street. And you know, you can see I don't know how to answer this, so I just keep going.
Can I say something about answer? You know, the way I see it is, the best thing to me, when we were making the movie, it was right in the middle of the George Zimmerman trial, and President Obama came out, and he said something to me that was so profound. He said, you know, I feel positive about race relations in this country because of our children. He said, my daughters are better than Michelle and I are. And I think my kids are better. My kids don't see sexual preference. They don't see race. They like their friends based on who they are, not what they are. And that's what this is. This is a forward-thinking look at race relations. That's why the last shot of the movie is this little girl, because, you know, that's the future. We're, sadly, I think we just keep sleeping with each other. We'll just be one race and there won't be a problem, you know? And that's, you know, some version of that's going to happen. And that, you know, there's been some really masterpieces done lately about the history of race with the Butler and 12 Years a Slave. But we wanted to do, one of the first conversation we had was a really kind of chewy conversation about where it's going. And that's what what would be my answer to the question.
I don't think anybody would have done what Mike did. Mike ended this movie with her, with Octavia, with that family, because the big thing is, are they going to be safe down there? All this weirdness. But what Mike managed to do in that movie was that she's plenty happy down there. And I just thought it was a really bold choice to make this movie end where she was perfectly safe, where she was perfectly loved. And it was just a really great choice. And I don't know a lot of people that could have written that. It was a high level of, you know, I'm going to quit complimenting you.
Yeah, no, you can go ahead.
No.
I thought you were doing great.
Okay, Mike, let's talk about that little girl, and let's talk about Jillian. And how did you find Jillian? And
I met her online. Oh, sorry. Wait, did I say that? No.
She bought me off of Craigslist.
Did I say that?
That sounded so wrong.
It did. It sounded so wrong. You're absolutely right. You know, we saw Sharon Bialy is a casting director that I work with, who's just wonderful, and we've been working together since my very first movie, and she read the script and she really connected to it, and that was so important to find Eloise, and she saw, I think, 2,000 little girls, and we looked at them all, and we looked at tapes, and you know, we just settled on Jillian, and you know, Kevin and I really had a good talk about it, because you know, she had never done a movie. You had done a Burger King commercial, right? Or you had done a couple movies, right?
I've done two movies. One says Christmas and Straight A's.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't like the main.
You guys act like you're just getting to know each other.
Yeah, we just met. I should have read the resume. But this was a big leap, and you know, and we both just said, you know, she's so charming and so charismatic, and so there's just a spark in her eyes. She's very, very special. It's really obvious when you first meet her, and you know, it was one of those things where we both just said, let's leap in. You know, let's leap in, and let's. Our job is to get her to feel at home with us so she can give the performance she gave. And I think one of the things was, I think Kevin really immediately kind of took that part of it to really make sure that she was comfortable with him and he was comfortable with her, and I think that worked out really good.
Well, Jillian, talk a bit about coming into this movie then. It was a big project. You've got a pretty substantial role.
It was my first time doing like a big role, but it kind of is me, so I'm really that was me. That wasn't just me acting. It was totally what happens in real life. But my family, I really am black and white. My mom's white, my dad's black. And we don't have a problem with seeing each other, our families or anything. But there was a time that when my mom got married, my grandma had a hard time letting her get married because she wasn't ready for it and everything. So it was a fun role, and I was so happy they picked me. And it was between two girls, me and another girl, and so.
She was 30, so you were better for the role.
Actually, Jillian, you didn't know this, but it was between me and you. Kevin said no to me.
Really? Well, you're still in the movie, so I don't think that really happened, you know. But it was fun because, like, at the beginning, I auditioned once, camera, then Skype, then I auditioned again on camera, and then they wanted to see me in New Orleans, and it was my golden birthday. And my mom just said, make the most out of everything because it's your birthday, even if they don't choose you. Well, they called me, and we were on the subway. Sorry, can I tell?
Yeah. It was New York. You were in New York.
We were in New York on the subway, and we got lost, so we were heading back, and we almost missed our flight. But then Mike and Molly. Molly called us, and she said, it's Jillian's birthday. Why don't we call her and tell her she got it? And so they called us, and we missed the call. So we got up, well, not purposely, but we were down in the subway. What do you expect?
They were negotiating.
we were like 5 blocks away from the hotel, and the car was about to leave and just forget about it, and we were gonna end up living in New York. So we got it, and my mom was like, she was on the phone, and she was like, oh, you just called to say happy birthday? That's great. We're 5 blocks away from the hotel, about to miss our flight. And then she said, can I talk to Jillian and tell her happy birthday? And she said, I'm going to give you the biggest present of all. And she said, you got it. And I was crying. I stopped, and my mom's like, hurry up, come on. And I'm like, Mom. And she thought they told me I didn't get it on my birthday, but I got it, so.
Question down front, but before we get to that, so what was it like on the first day, meeting Kevin Costner and working with?
Well, I had met him in NYC, New York, that's what it stands for. I met him in New York, and my mom and Mike said we just had a really good connection, and I don't know what the word is, but for like vocab or something. Vocabulary stuff. That's why you guys wanted to see me. But chemistry. Yes. Chemistry. They wanted to see how our chemistry was, and so the first day of filming was really good. It was weird for me because I got a trailer. Didn't expect that. And not necessarily the first day of filming was really fun because we had already done like photo shoots before. And when we did the first day of, what do I want to say? The first day of filming was really fun because we filmed the last scene technically. I didn't know that you filmed like at the end we filmed the scene of being when my grandma dies, but that's at the very beginning. It was just really good for me because I've never seen anything like that. I've filmed this movie called So This Is Christmas, but I was one of the main kid actors, but I was not one of the main actresses. And it was just a really good experience for me. So thank you guys.
Okay. Question over here. Oh. Either one.
Hi, my name is Astrid Rina. I'm from the International Newswire DPA. I wanted to ask you, racial tension has been a big issue in the last weeks because of what happened in Ferguson. And I wanted to know which kind of contribution do you think cinema can specifically do to the debate of this kind of subjects, in which way it contributes.
Well, cinema has continued to inform me in my life, all through my life. I learned what a hero was by watching a movie. I learned who I wish I wasn't when I watched a film. I go, I don't want to be that person. I learned how to kiss. I learned, watch Sean Connery kiss the girl. You learned who was cool. You learned who wasn't. And movies can be about wild entertainment, and sometimes movies can be about moments you never ever forget the rest of your life, and they help to inform you. And as I struggle with how to have this most delicate conversation, when I read Mike's simple line of it's not my first thought that counts, it's my second, my third, and my fourth that will define whether or not who you really are. And when I read that, I thought it was genius, because I've struggled with it probably like everybody, and Mike opened up a window. So Black and White really is a platform for having this conversation, and it comes out of the mouth of a drunk, somebody who feels cornered, and somebody who thinks he's losing. But at the end, he lashes out. But what happens is there's a level of wisdom in what he says, and it's only up for us to hear that and to help. It helps us go forward. So I think this movie, without intending to, has really advanced this conversation. And for that, that was specifically, I knew that had a chance to happen. And when I watched the film yesterday with 4,000 people, it happened.
The thing that I also think that we try to do, and that I think film has to be very careful of, because it does set the conversation in a lot of ways, but there's also wrong ways to do it. Like Octavia was saying, to make the white guy the big savior and all the black people wrong. But it's also, it won't ring true when you go the other way. You can't have the white guy just be an idiot and the father be a nuclear scientist. You have to speak. I think it's very important in media to have really positive role models for children to watch and for adults to watch, but they have to ring real, and in a movie like this, you can't be afraid of having characters to say, well, that's going to come off like a cliche, because in the situation with the father, the father who's a drug addict, that's the closest thing in my life to what the real story was, and also a father not in a young boy's life. And you can't shy away from those stories, because at the moment they're not politically correct to tell. And I think that cinema really, and film really has a responsibility to tell real stories and not to make everybody, glossy and perfect on both sides. And that's one of the things that I feel about this movie is there's no hero in this movie. It goes like this, You don't know who the hero in this movie is, because in real life, people aren't heroes. They're just, you can be really good on Tuesday and be a schmuck on Wednesday,
It's true.
I think that's. I think that was why Impo's character was so important, because you Impo's character, and I'll let Devon, I get him mixed up because of having to work with him all the time, but I'll let you tell the story in the sense that when he goes down to South Central, he has no connection. And I think that's another beautiful thing you did. Impo goes down there, and he's more comfortable being around me than he was the group of people that you might think that he would have. And you might want to speak to that.
It's strange that you mentioned something like that. I feel as though I very much connected to that idea. Being a Canadian, African, however the term would go, I feel as though when I speak with many American blacks, there's a bit of a disconnect of sorts, to where I don't feel as though they think I measure up to their level of blackness sometimes. That's something that presents itself. And then in the same respect, when I speak with a lot of South Africans that are following what I do, they don't feel as though I live up to a certain level of Africanness that they, no, and I mean this is really something I experience. So for you to mention that, Kevin, it's 100% something that I was thinking about and draw comparisons to and am connected to, not only with the story, but with my life. You know, so it makes it so easy to show up and play the role, and yet it just has such a profound impact on me, considering it's something that I deal with every day. You know, so specifically the scene when you're at the law office, and when you say it's not about black and white, like I connect with that so much, and I feel like that is so much of the movie for me, and how we really are trying to get away from the fact of the race as opposed to it's not so cut and dry. And I think that's what he means in that scene. It's not here or there as opposed to the color or the shade, black or white. And I just love that undertone, man. It's just such a relevant spot and line, I think, that connects everything that you're telling me and what I'm saying, and just, I think, everything we try to capture in the movie. So yeah, the undertones and the messages are so inherent, you know, it's like, I don't even think you meant to do it sometimes. It's just there, you know, it's just there. And I'm paying attention to those things, yeah.
Talk a bit more about the character of Devon and the nuances or the quirks you gave him as you were building the character.
You know, I don't even know what to think anymore, you know, especially after Mike told the Skype story. I think I'm just going to leave that to myth. You know what I mean? I don't even think I'll ever entertain what actually happened, you know. It's, Mike told me to watch Being There. Peter Sellers, Shirley MacLaine film. I think it was a 1980 release. And he told me, you know, he's like, watch this movie, and, you know, I really think, you know, Duvon, there's a bit of Duvon in this Peter Sellers character. Just watch him and kind of, you know, figure it out for yourself, you know, and see Duvon in this character, and that really helped me a lot. And then I figured, you know, I maybe knew one thing or two and brought something that I maybe had kind of stored away. And the accent is something that I think I kind of just did. You know, I don't really think I thought about that too much. But I think Mike really helped me navigate the rest of it. Like, I really, you know, there's times when you kind of don't really feel like you know what you're doing, and he kind of fills those gaps. He'll kind of just tell me in my ear, you know, well, this or not this, or that or not that. And I think whenever, you know, the accent, he would always tell me to tighten up the accent if it was kind of slipping a bit, and I really appreciated that, because I really pick apart actors whose accents crack. Like, I really hold actors accountable for this, you know, and if you're an A-list actor or something, like, it's your duty to get it right, or else don't do it.
What, you say you don't like my English accent?
Well, what's that, darling?
I've worked very
Darling,
hard.
darling.
Thank you very much.
We have a question back here in the third row.
This question's for Kevin, Mark Daniel from Sun Media. So a lot of people have grown up watching your movies, so this is your fourth movie this year. It's completely different than the other ones. So what kind of experience do you want your audiences to have with you, I mean, over the years, and what do you want people who've grown up watching your films, like, what do you feel about that experience with your fans, with your movie fans?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a kind of a myth that I did 4 movies in a year. In Superman, I worked 5 days, and Jack Ryan, I worked about 10. And then what happened is they were done a couple years ago, and then just the way they rolled out, I very rarely worked back to back in my career. I've 2 or 3 times in my career, I've just taken a year off. I think if you look at a lot of actors that are that you would consider in my category, me and theirs, I've done probably so many fewer movies than them. I'm happy that the movies have stayed with people. Really happy about that. I make movies for people. I don't make them for myself. I have that one moment where I read a script and I feel like I've got a secret. I got this great big secret that now I get to share. I don't know any of us that don't read a good book, and if it's great, want to share it. I think when we hear a really great joke, we share it, and when we hear a great music, we share it. And for us, I think, for me specifically, I remember reading Field of Dreams. I remember reading these movies and go, I got a big secret in my pocket. And I have movies that I still want to make. I still like the oldest art form there is, telling stories. The good thing is we have cinema now. It's just not a campfire and it disappears into the night. I like to tell stories, and I plan to get on a horse again and make some westerns. So when I decide that I don't like it, I won't do it, because movies, while they define my life out in the world, I don't allow movies to define me. So I still love sharing, and it's been a real privilege to make movies. I think all of us are really lucky that somehow we've found this job, because a lot of us probably wouldn't function very well in other professions. We don't know why. We can't explain it, but a lot of the actors, if we were out in the Serengeti right now, we'd go, "Oh, I know you. I recognize you. You're an actor." I think we recognize each other because our desire to somehow make up shit and put a show on. It's remarkable that we've been able to make a living, and I am really grateful that movies have taken me around the world.
I just want to say I've been on the Serengeti. I couldn't pick out the actors, so.
They've all been eaten.
Yeah. Just a couple more questions here.
Hunting thing, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lekha Shankar, Bangkok 101 magazine. Question for Kevin. You've been talking about what you know and you don't know. I just want to know whether there was anything you learned or unlearned from this movie. And for the others, we're talking of successful black actors staying there. Is race still an issue you have so many successful people in the field of music, cinema. Is race still an issue in the field of the performing arts?
Well, unfortunately, I'll start with is race still an issue? I think it's an issue because people make it an issue. I think, just like anything, prejudices will be there. We have sexism, we have racism, we have all kinds of isms that we as individuals have to, just deal with yourself. The only person that you can change is you. And by being the best example that you can be, you can somehow influence other people. So I, like Kevin, I don't let my job define me. My interactions with different people define me. I try not to label situations and people and circumstances and just take them as they are. And I think if people relax and do that more, racism wouldn't be a problem, sexism wouldn't be a problem, we wouldn't have all the isms, and people would be a lot happier. That's just me.
Race is not an issue for me in the movies. I believe in the truth, and when I made Bodyguard, I thought the prettiest woman in the world was Whitney Houston. I wanted to kiss her. When I made Dances with Wolves, the Native Americans were Native Americans. They weren't white actors in makeup. The truth is just as entertaining as the lie, and so you cast correctly. I'm not looking. The race doesn't bother me. It's people who don't show up on time, people who aren't prepared. I like professional actors. I love them, and they make my job easier, and they make Mike's job easier. And that's how I judge actors. Are they prepared? Are they ready? We're after the truth, and inside that truth, I think the movies have always had room to laugh and cry and contemplate.
One final question.
I guess the thing, okay, Arranged marriages, as some of you may be aware of, like, okay, they're arranged with, of course, a lot of, parental input. And generally the theory behind arranged marriages is that, you go for people that are of known backgrounds and, and you kind of, and people will get an idea of the characters of the two people getting married and things like that, and, their habits and stuff. So adjustment is a big part of, how arranged marriages work. Now, in these independent marriages in America, because that's what I guess I'll call them, love marriages or independent marriages. I guess, I guess the parental input may not have as great a role as, we're seeing in some of this. So, and I wonder how much, adjustment, how much of a role adjustment plays in, the two people coming together. And sometimes when you go for somebody on your own, you might get blinded, and so you may make the wrong choices. But I'm, and you may do the right things, you may do the wrong things. It can go either way. But I'm just now wondering, given how your characters are dealing with the aftermath of everything, do you feel that there should be more parental? Maybe people can have independent marriages, but do you feel that there should be more parental input than what there is?
No.
No matter
honey.
what, no matter what, your marriage is arranged.
That never caught on.
No matter where you are, there's an arrangement that
strange.
goes into marriage. No matter who your parents, if God himself come down and be like, you're going to have a conversation with that arrangement. Like, okay, we're going to live in this house. Don't do this. I won't do that. All right, let's do it. I've never been married.
It's strange. It's strange. Like, that's a really good question. Wow, that's really deep, actually. It's fun. My mother gave someone, an African gentleman, my phone number, who was a friend of a young lady who she helped, right? So there's some kind of arrangement in that. And also, I think you speak to the decision-making of said parents. This guy ended up being like the worst guy. But at the start of it, my mother felt as though her decision-making and her ability to see the good in this person, because he was African and we're all connected because of that, you understand? So that's very relevant, I see that. But she ended up making the wrong decision, in my opinion. So it totally happens. But at the same time, wouldn't you trust your parents' decision on who, not necessarily to make the choice for you, but Mom, do you like this person or not?
No.
You know, you see what I'm trying to say?
No. My mama called me and say, well, I met so-and-so. Good.
Right.
Delete.
Peace.
Delete.
Right? Every time, right?
Every time.
No.
No.
But my mom's like, this guy is cool.
Yeah.
But he ended up being the worst guy.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't totally trust my mother's decision-making right now. You feel me? So this is a great question.
I think I get it, but I think there's also, the only way to grow as a human being is to make mistakes and to learn from those mistakes. And if you never get your heart broken, how can you ever truly know when you're madly in love? Or I'm sorry, I just can't have other people making decisions for me. But that's just me. That's me.
No, I totally get what you're saying.
But it feels like that is, yeah.
It's still weird, though.
No.
That's still very weird because
That
you have to be
person-
with this person.
Yeah, that person is not with my
You
parents.
smell what I'm saying? It's like
My dad
you're gonna
is
see
not
me at
dealing
Christmas.
with
I'm gonna
my
see
wife.
Mom at Christmas, maybe Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So it's like I feel like most in-laws and parents, they don't get along anyway. You know, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know?
What just happened to our press conference?
Yeah, right? Turned into Maury. It turned into Maury.
One final question in the back there.
Not happening.
I'm just going to get this back on track here for a second. First of all, I want to make a couple of comments. I worked on the movie with you guys, so I'm related to this. So you can judge my comments here based on that. But the first comment was, hi Octavia, was when Kevin called me about this movie, I honestly have never spoken to an actor who was more excited about what he was going to do, about the material that he was going to do, and never wavered for 1 second from the beginning to the end about your commitment to the movie, your love of the script, your love of the project, and your love of what you were going to do with this part. And I've never actually, and I've made a lot of movies in my life, as some of you may know, and you were amazing throughout this entire process. You were the absolute captain, the general. I mean, not taking that away from Mike. Mike was the general on the set, but you were the general of this movie, and you were amazing in it. And Mike, when I read the script, and you called me, Kevin, and said, you've got to read this script. It's absolutely amazing. You have to read this thing. I haven't read anything this exciting for me in a while, and I'm gonna make this movie. And I read the script, and I immediately thought, and I'd heard about Mike Binder many times over the years. I heard about you, but we never actually met each other. And then when I met you, I was completely shocked because I thought you were black. From reading the script, I thought, oh, it must be black. And I realized from my point of view what a stereotype, how I think, you know, and that changed my feelings. And the real question that I want to ask for the both of you guys really is, what are your hopes for this film? What, in your sense, is the success or failure of this picture? What is that? What do you want to see happen from this film now? Is it a financial success, or is it about changing the way people feel about black and white and the race relations in America?
Well, first off, the true measure of a movie is not how much money it makes. It's how we choose to measure movies, though, these days. But I think we know people have extraordinary opening weekends, things that we can't even contemplate. I can't let how much money black and white makes affect how I felt the first day I read this, the day after I started making this, and what happened last night. Those are moments I'll never forget. 4,000 people standing, turning, celebrating something that we all like, which is going to the movies. So the movie has succeeded wildly for me already. There are these obvious things that how we measure the success of a movie. I mean, we're living in a time right now where it's thumbs up or thumbs down. We live in a time now where people tell us who's the best dressed and who's the worst dressed, and what's in and what's out. And they're mixed signals. And for people who aren't listening, they're noise. They're just noise. And we have to decide for ourselves what's good. And 4,000 people saw this movie and understood what I think we all understood. They laughed in the same places. They cried in the same places. So my goal for this movie was was that it could be a classic. That's what I hope for. And when something's a classic, by definition, what it means is that there's a willingness to pass it to somebody else. That good story, that good song, that joke, it gets passed on. And I hope that Black and White is a movie that finds its that is passed on. For those who believe in movies, this is a big movie too. So what? It costs $9 million. It's a big movie. There's big things happening in this movie, and people who have big careers stopped to make this movie. And so I hope this does travel the world, because movies, I learned a long time ago, aren't just for Americans, North Americans on your continent. They travel the world, and people are changed. And this movie didn't try on purpose to do that, but I'm different because of it. And occasionally movies have that chance to alter us just a little bit. When we walk out of the dark, we don't maybe want to go home right away. Maybe we go out and get some pie or something, but we think about the movie a little bit. We just don't go home right away because a movie hits us. And we thought, I was moved by that. And the movies still can do that. They have the opportunity every time. I quite honestly miss curtains. There's something magical when the curtain opens. It always means that something's possible. And a movie has a chance to be great every time a curtain opens. And what happens is, will it be great? And those decisions all happen every day on a set. How good was your script? How close did you stick to it? Were you a good steward of this material? Were you not afraid of it? Do you believe in the audience loving this movie? And if you hold all tight onto all those things, your movie does have a chance to be great. You know, and so what do I want? I would like for this to have massive success. What is massive success? It's a funny way to measure it. But if we're going to make more movies like this, a lot of people have to go to this movie. And we hope that. But I'm very content how this movie will be judged 5 years from now, and 10 years, and 15. And for me, that is always the best sign of what a movie is.
Okay. Black and White is a TIFF Gala presentation. It had its world premiere yesterday afternoon at Roy Thompson Hall. There will be another public TIFF screening today at 5:15 at the Scotiabank One Theatre, and also next Friday at the Winter Garden Theatre. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you guys for coming.
Thank you guys for coming.